to generate a newsletter, etc. We also have been really good at raising funds through our involvement with Pride and Folsom Pride Parade, where we have a booth, and there were several gay-oriented fairs which we've been involved with, which we generate $2,000 or $3,000 of pop for our participation for, so it works out.
Do you have any regular chapter events?
We have a annual membership appreciation brunch, and we have in Santa Cruz and in San Francisco now, we have irregularly scheduled raps discussions, and that's changing. It was kind of movie night, but now we're changing to movie night to really do not generate discussion. We're also in the process of, as we find who we are and who we want to be, because there is a large populace out there who I think might be interested. I hate to say it, that I'm the youngest person on the board, and since I am over 40, it's an interesting, it's a statement as to who we are, and I think the challenge to the local chapters, the challenge to the National Association is how do we embrace new people to something that's very familiar to us. And as we are, so it's on one level it works for those of us who've been around for a long time. How do we really say to someone who does not have the 15, 20 years history, make that something that's relevant to them?
Well, let's switch gears. Regis.
Okay.
You're a member of probably the most vibrant national chapter now, Philadelphia, and you certainly had some major accomplishments there. So when did you first get involved on the local level with your chapter?
I first joined in 1995. I remember seeing Black and White Men Together listed in a gay magazine. I was terribly in the closet at the time, but I decided to send them a letter just to inquire about it, and I remember somebody responded, but I was just so, I guess, hesitant and in the closet at the time, I never followed up on it. And I think it was about a year later or so, when I went down to Gay Pride for the first time in Philadelphia, and there were all these different organizations had tables set up, and I remember one of them was Men of All Colors Together Philadelphia, and I picked up some information about the organization, and I figured, I'd look it over and, think about joining it and stuff. And I was still terribly in the closet. Had a few people I was out to, a couple straight friends. I had a couple gay friends I had made, but still was terribly in the closet. And I was getting near the end of my first relationship at that point. And it just so happened that my relationship ended that next month. And after it ended, I just decided I need to get on with my life, and I remember I joined two organizations. I called up Men of All Colors Together Philadelphia and the National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association and joined them both. And it was kind of funny because I joined Men of All Colors Together Philadelphia thinking, well, the thing that's going to get me on with my life is if I get a new boyfriend. And I joined the group looking for a boyfriend. I remember I called the phone number, and the first person I spoke to on the phone was Stevie Martin Chester, and I just remember just how excited he was telling me about the group and just how colorful and just charismatic his voice was, and just, I remember I barely got a word in edgewise because he was so excited about the group. And I decided to attend my first event, which was, I think it was the same week. They invited me to a CR that was held at Stevie and Art's house in Norristown, Pennsylvania.
Consciousness raising?
Yeah, exactly. And I remember going, and it was, at that point it was late June of 1995, and unfortunately only 5 people turned out for it besides myself. Stevie, Art, Beth Davis, and I'm trying to think there were 2 other people there. I can't remember their names, but it was a very small turnout, but it was a very intense discussion. I can't remember the topic, but I just remember it felt really good to go there and talk about things. And I was a little, I guess, bewildered at the low turnout because I thought, well, gee, is this what all the events are like? I'm not going to be able to really meet that many people or anything. But then I decided, well, I can't just give it one shot. I've got to, go to some more events and see what it's like. And I was really glad I did. They would have beach trips to Sandy Hook Beach in New Jersey. I went on a couple of them that summer. They had a barbecue at this one house in Germantown, Pennsylvania, where a lot of people turned out. And I remember going to that, and I met two of my best friends, who are still two of my closest friends to this day, Sam Fisher and John Orendash. And I just remember walking up to them. They were sitting with a couple other people, and I introduced myself. And I said, I just joined, and they invited me to sit with them and talk with them, and it was great. I mean, I just remember really bonding with them that evening at that moment, and that fall I got very actively involved in the organization, and it was kind of interesting. I realized what was happening to me, and it was something that Stevie had said, even on our first phone conversation. He said, well, what you need is support. And I didn't have that in my life at that time. I mean, I had a couple gay friends I was out to, like I said, a couple supportive straight friends. I was not out to my family, definitely not out at work or anything like that. And it just didn't occur to me that that's really what I needed more than anything. And the organization, the Philadelphia chapter, became my family. I mean, I met so many wonderful people through it. John Spear, Nate O'Neill, Stevie Art, just so many people, Chuck McLean, I can think of so many people over the years that I became good friends with. And just that fall, I remember they had the first regional for what was being proposed as the newly revamped Northeast Regional, and it was being held in Pittsburgh that year. So a whole bunch of us drove out to Pittsburgh. We rented a big van. I think there was about a total of 8 of us drove out there, and that was just the most wonderful weekend. There was a boat cruise that went up and down the rivers there, and I remember we shared the boat with a large number of straight people, but we took over the boat to the point where the band that was performing was even singing My Guy at one point as opposed to My Girl, and it was just the most wonderful weekend. And they had some really dynamic workshops, speakers, people who just really, really, I don't know, just drew you in and made you want to be a part of what they were doing, what they were creating. And I wound up volunteering as one of the two. I'm trying to remember if I think we had 2 regional representatives from Philadelphia for the Northeast region. I can't remember the name of the person who was the other one, but we became active in the Northeast region, which lasted, I think, probably for about the next year. It unfortunately started to fizzle after that. We met in Baltimore the following spring, and that was another successful regional, but then I think part of the problem was a lot of the chapters in the Northeast weren't quite as strong as maybe Philadelphia, or as strong as they would have liked to have been, so it was kind of hard for us to fuel this regional that we all wanted to be a part of, and unfortunately it fizzled. But I just remember that first year, the organization had a profound effect on my life, just changed it for the better forever.
Now, had your previous relationship been an interracial one?
Yeah, it was with a black man. I had met him through a personal ad I had put in the Philadelphia Gay News, and we had dated for about a year. It just didn't work out, and kind of just towards the end, just slowly fizzled out. We were both going through changes in our life. He was a police officer in addition to an engineering student, and he was also newly becoming out on campus at the college that he went to. It just seemed like we were kind of growing apart. He was kind of experiencing this whole new episode of his life. I was still very much in the closet. I wasn't ready to come out yet, and that's what happened there.
So you joined the chapter. You immediately got involved as the regional, or as the Northeast Regional Rep. How did your other roles in the chapter evolve, and what were they?
Well, one of the other roles that I had was, within that first year, Stevie Martin Chester had asked me to begin a project of interviewing some of the longtime members. And remember he said, you know, we really want to preserve our history. A lot of it's missing. Would you go about interviewing these 8 members, and we've got 2 other volunteers to do it with me. And he had asked me because I had made my living up until that point as a newspaper reporter and an editor, so I had a lot of experience in this field. And the project was just slow to start for me because I guess just that first year I was involved with the organization, it was just also a busy time in my life period. Just I had been living on my own for only a couple of years up to that point. I was working very long hours at the newspaper, but then I finally decided, okay, I really want to get the ball rolling on this. And we divided up the interviews, and I remember the first one that I did was with a longtime member named Jerry Lester, who had moved out to Edison, New Jersey. And I remember going out there and interviewing him, and I wasn't recording it, I was writing it all longhand. And I just remember how dynamic he was, just about how, and just how vivid his memories were from everything that he was involved with the group, and just how so many of the group's just different things that they had done over the years came back to him. The AIDS record that the group had recorded, the Resisting Racism Manual, just the bar discrimination project that the group worked on, which was about fighting discrimination in the gay bars. I came out of the interview with 30 pages of notes, and I was just amazed, and that just really charged me up for this project. And it kind of went from a project that was like on the back burner for me to, wow, I really want to do this. And I interviewed a couple more members, and they weren't quite as detailed as that interview, but just, I just remember a lot of the recollections were just amazing, and just some of the quotes I got out of him just about how excited he was in the early days of the organization just really had an impact on me. And I got the interviews back that the other members had done, but they were really, really short. I mean, they were only about 2 or 3 paragraphs each, and I decided...
You had done them all yourself? Or?
No. I had done about 3 or 4 of them, and there were, I think about maybe 4 or 5 that the other 2 chapter members had done, but those came back and they were really short.
Who were the other 2 people doing these?
Gene Root and I'm trying to remember the other man's name. Can't remember off the top of my head. But I just decided I really want to go into this in great detail. And I guess I probably should have gone back to them and said, you know, well, ask these questions and ask those questions. But I guess I undertook it to myself that I just really want to do this, and I just really want to learn about all this stuff that the organization has done over the years, because, I mean, until I had interviewed Jerry, I mean, I didn't know about the rap record, I didn't know about a lot of this stuff. I had known about resisting racism, I had heard of Jerry Mallon and the work that he had done, but I just didn't, it's a different story when, I guess, you hear it secondhand, but you hear it from somebody who had direct contact and had worked with this person and was involved in so much of this stuff, and it just really had an effect on me. And at that point, I started interviewing more people than Stevie had just given me, I think, the original 8 names. But then as I was interviewing people, they were saying, well, I don't remember this, but get in touch with so-and-so. He'll give you some background on that. So people were referring me to other people, and I had interviewed so many people that were involved in the organization. I interviewed Beck Davis, both Stevie Anart, Sam Fisher, John Orengosh, Jerry Lester, as I had mentioned, Jeff Keith from Philadelphia, just a number of people. And before I knew it, I wound up with 22 interviews. And I started compiling everything, but because I had never done a project like that before, I was kind of doing it ass backwards. And what I realized was I need to go through all of the newsletters that the organization has had since the beginning. So what I did was, at that point, I'd been into the project at least a year and a half, if not longer. I went down to the William Lake Community Center in Philadelphia when they would have their library open, and the library had almost every single newsletter since the beginning, plus newspaper articles, and I would go down there every Tuesday night this one spring for, it was at least 2 months, not 3 months, and I just went through all the newsletters, taking notes, making photocopies of things, finding newspaper articles, as well as getting newspaper articles from other sources, Jerry Lester, other members who had had them. And I slowly started putting this together, this timeline, and I took Jerry Lester's template, or interview as a template, because his recollections were the most vivid, and I put them on top of that, and then I started breaking it up into chapters and years of the organization about the rap record, resisting racism, when the chapter went through its name change, when the chapter almost folded in the late 80s, just all these different things. And by the summer of 1999, I had this 55-page document, which was a history of the Philadelphia chapter, and I presented it to them that summer.
And it's obviously a model for everyone.
Oh, thank you.
If only we could. So, what's the title of the document?
Well, it's now called Smashing Racism. It wasn't named that summer. It was just called something like a history of black and white, a 20-year history of black and white men together, men of all colors together, Philadelphia. And within that next year, it was gone through, I gave out copies to the board of the Philadelphia chapter, some of the longtime members I had interviewed, and I really wanted them to go through it and just give me feedback. Okay, was this okay? Was that okay? Did we go into enough detail here? I wanted to find out just in case I got some facts wrong, and, there were a few things that I had gotten wrong, and I really wanted that corrected before we went and printed the whole thing. So about a year later was when we formally printed it, and we printed it as Smashing Racism, the history of the Philadelphia chapter.
So your involvement, that's been obviously your primary project. Are you still involved in the chapter?
I'm still involved in the chapter. About a year and a half ago, my job got moved up to New York City from Fort Washington, Pennsylvania, which is one of the Philadelphia suburbs, and I wound up moving to North Jersey. So since moving up there, I haven't been quite as active in the Philadelphia chapter as I've been before, but I still make it back there on occasion to events. I still attend the anniversary every year, make it to the convention, things like that, but it's not nearly as much as it had been before, just because of the geographic constraints.
Well, now, what was your first contact with the National?
My first contact with the National was the 1996 convention in Cleveland, and I remember I drove out there with my friend Sam Fisher. We didn't attend the whole week. I think we drove out there either on, I think it must have been that Friday, so I only wound up attending the last weekend of the event. So unfortunately I had missed the No Talent show. I think both the black and white caucuses, a lot of the things that are really just major parts of convention week. And I guess my first convention there, I felt kind of at a loss, because it seemed like everybody knew each other, everybody had this week to kind of bond, get to know each other, attend workshops together. But I still just, I remember I was kind of slow to get into the events that weekend. I can't remember what was held that Friday and Saturday, but my strongest memory of that weekend was the convention banquet. And I remember Keith Boykin giving the keynote address, and I just remember being extremely moved by the speech he gave. And I don't remember the name of the speech, but it was about, it really was kind of about galvanizing the national organization to get moving, because the right wing is out there, and they are really just together, they are armed, they are, I guess it just made me realize just how dangerous they are. And the speech just was letting us know that the gay community isn't as cohesive as the right wing in this country. And I just remember leaving that convention just really charged, wanting to do things with the National, with the Philadelphia chapter at that point.
Now, were you a delegate that year?
No, I wasn't. I was never actually a delegate, but I did attend the convention every year. I've attended every year since 1996.
So what have your experiences been at the other conventions? Anything, things that stand out?
Oh, wow, lots of things. I just remember the 1996 convention in Charlotte, or excuse me, 1997 convention in Charlotte, North Carolina was my first time attending it for an entire week. And I just remember there wasn't a lot to do in Charlotte, but I remember just spending so much time at the hotel and workshops that I just remember just attending some workshops that were just really amazing and just really made you think. And I remember that was my first year attending the Black and White Caucus, or attending the White Caucus rather, and seeing the No Talent Talent Show for the first time and really starting to make some new friends. And I mean, just outside of the Philadelphia chapter. And I remember going to the 1998 convention in Florida, and I remember just slowly over time just meeting some really good friends that I've made over the years at the conventions who I wouldn't have met otherwise. I can think of my friend Larry Van Hook from St. Louis. He's a good friend. I made just so many different people. Paul Hawkins, who I had first met at the Pittsburgh Regional in 1995. Les Root, Les Everett, just so many different people who, if it wasn't for the conventions, I would have never met these people. John Bush, James Creedle.
How, if at all, does the atmosphere of a national convention differ from your experience with a chapter in Philadelphia?
Well, I guess with my experiences with the chapter in Philadelphia, when they have an event, you're usually only together for one night, and it's usually 9 times out of 10 the people who turn up are the core active members, whereas Philadelphia would have a chapter, I remember within the past few years, had close to 100 members at one time or another, but you would only see at any given point maybe 20 active members. Sometimes events would be as low as 10 people would turn out. Other times you'd have potlucks. I remember I hosted a potluck at my apartment where I had 35 people turn out, and a lot of them were from the chapter, some of them weren't, but just it varied. But I guess with going to the national conventions, you get so many people who are of the like mind, of those core involved members who you would see at the regular events in the Philadelphia chapter. So you kind of get this energy and this feeling just that you're on a high. And every year leaving convention, I feel just like, wow, I really want to do stuff and get more involved and just do more than I've done before.
Well, now, you had a particular involvement in this project at the Fort Lauderdale Convention. Can you talk about that?
Oh, well, I remember you had asked me to be a part of it. I think I had volunteered for it. That was after I had started the Philadelphia chapter's history book, and I thought maybe somehow I could combine that with this. So I had volunteered for this committee, and I remember we had our first meeting. I think it was in your hotel room at the Fort Lauderdale Convention. And I just remember we were sitting there talking about how we were going to do the project, whether it was going to be written, whether it was going to be videotaped. And I remember thinking, well, I could come up with a list of questions while everybody's hammering this out. And I remember just offering to do that. And you said, okay, well, you can do that. And by the end of the meeting, I had this list of questions all hammered out that I had presented to you. And you guys have been using them ever since.
And in fact, you conducted the first 2 interviews, didn't you?
Yeah, it was John Bush and Tim Wilson. That's right. Yeah. So, and I remember just I felt really nervous because I wasn't used to conducting interviews on videotape, much less taping interviews at all. Because I was always just a shorthand person. I had developed my own crazy shorthand over the years, but I just remember they went just much better than I expected, and just I remember how dynamic John Bush was with just everything that came out of him, and just his recollections, and it went incredibly well. And I just remember him saying to me afterwards, "Ooh, you asked hard questions," and I was like, "Oh, that made me feel really good."
That's on the tape, incidentally.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, we're still using your questions.
Oh, thank you.
I've been asking them today, or I will be, if we ever get to that part of the interview.
Okay.
So you've come to every convention since then,
Yeah.
and any more specific recollections, things that stand out?
Oh gosh, trying to think. I just remember the talent shows every year, just the performances. I mean, just seeing Preston do his thing every year, just seeing Sterling sing. I mean, it's just things to really look forward to, and just and I guess one thing about the talent show is just this organization is very much a family, and seeing people, I guess people perform for their family there, and just seeing the response with people go up and putting the money in, and just seeing all the money that raises just every single year, it's something that I absolutely don't want to miss. Just the speeches over the years, I mean, just hearing them and just being quite moved. I mean, I remember, I remember David Morris gave the speech. It wasn't actually at a convention. It was at the Baltimore Regional in 1996, and it was another message about the right wing, and his speech was about the Bible and what the Bible tells us about homosexuality. And it was interesting because he told us all these things that just the right wing says this and the right wing says that about homosexuality that are in the Bible, and there are these kind of very vague interpretations. And I remember just thinking, wow, you know, that just really made me think. And I just wish I had that speech written down after that, and just things like that, and the conventions are very much a family reunion for me. So in addition to going and just learning things, I learn things every year. Just going to the workshops and hearing people speak. Just being able to see your friends, your families, and every single year is just absolutely wonderful.
Well, I want to ask you both a series of general questions in a minute, but first of all, Gavin, I just want to see if you have any. We got up to, I forget which convention we got up to, 86, 87, 88. What specific recollections, if any, do you have from the subsequent conventions? You've come to all of them.
Yeah.
Is there anything that really stands out?
Well, 86, actually, 86 was my favorite convention. There was something about that energy. To me, it was that every single moment there were things to do. There was a little bit of downtime, and people could choose their things, but 86 to me, I see that schedule of that convention. It was like kind of the model convention, as was 88. John Bush put together a phenomenal show in 88 in Boston. Different conventions.
When you're done, I want to come back to that because I remembered something. Right? Let me finish. No, go on. You can go on.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to